This is the Business Storytelling Show with Christoph Trapp. Name a top 20 storytelling podcast and a top 5% podcast globally. Christoph chats with thought leaders and experts to share tips and tricks that can help you tell your company's stories better to drive business results. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, live streamed on major social media channels, and part of the DB&A television network. Available on most U.S. television sets and streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire. Here's Christoph with today's episode. Let's go.
Hey, let's go business storytellers. How's everyone doing? Today we want to talk about Instagram. What is new? What do we need to do? What do we need to think about? I personally have had a lot of fun on Instagram creating Instagram Reels with my daughter, who promptly spends our bonus money on toys, which we then do Amazon product review videos on the next day after she used them. Talking about Amazon, we are live on Amazon once again. Everything you see around me, the backdrop, the microphone, everything, you can subscribe to the podcast on there. You see in the carousel below. If you're watching anywhere else, just search for Christoph Trapp Amazon storefront and you can find everything there. Today, we're going to talk to Corey Walker. She, I don't know how she does it, but they update this Instagram for Dummies book. It seems to me like all the time. I don't know how they keep up, but there's changes all the time, but they're doing their very best to keep this thing updated. So you can pre-order the new edition. I think it's coming out in a couple weeks on Amazon. So check that out. But what's new with Instagram? What should we be doing? Are Reels the thing to do? You know, IGTV, is that still a thing? I think that may have disappeared somehow. I didn't even notice. So let's find out what Corey has to say about the latest and greatest on Instagram. Welcome.
Hello. Boom.
Boom. Welcome back to the show. I think this might be your third time, potentially.
Yeah, I've been on your show more than any other show. So this is my third time.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'd like to have you on the show. Lots of Instagram details, especially for us dummies. Haha. So tell us what's the latest on Instagram? What do we need to think about? I mean, Reels certainly is one thing, but the other thing on Reels that I've noticed, it's like we get 8 views or we get thousands of views. Like there's no middle ground.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Reels is kind of the big thing right now. And in fact, over the summer, you were probably seeing like crazy views. I know I was, and it was frankly a lot of fun because Instagram was really pushing Reels. They're trying so hard to beat TikTok. So they were pushing Reels, and they were at the same time pushing information to more users and suggesting your Reels and other posts to other people. So you were getting seen by a ton of people. So you probably saw tons and tons of views and likes. And it was, for me, it was really fun. And then it kind of got pulled back. So I don't know if you saw, the Kardashians spoke and said, hey, we're getting sick of seeing video all the time. We still like photos. And a lot of other people said they like photos. And a lot of people were complaining and saying, hey, I'm seeing all this content from people that I don't know. Give me my friends' photos back. Give me, people I know. And so they've been literally reeling it in on Reels. So what you're probably experiencing in the last couple months is seeing a lot of those views go down because you're not getting suggested either at all or not nearly as much as they were doing over the summer. And then just recently, I noticed Friday that they really pulled back on Reels and they were showing way more photo posts. So, a lot of the people that I had been following that just continued to post regular photo and image posts, I hadn't really seen in a long time because it was all Reels. So I started over the weekend. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you, and started seeing a lot of those photo posts again. So it's constantly changing.
Constantly changing. What's interesting to me is too that people actually complain about that. I don't know whether or not I like photos better than reels. Reels sometimes get a little old when, it's the same song everybody is trying
Yeah.
to dance to or the same thing over and over and over.
Yes.
But I don't know that I have a preference for photos or reels or whatnot. I'm mostly looking for something interesting, right? And whether that's
Yeah,
a
for
photo
sure.
or a reel, I don't really care
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. I think what people were complaining about, well, it's two-sided. So on the side of, creators or just people that wanted to post photos, they still wanted to do that and they weren't really wanting to be on camera and do all these things. They just wanted to get their message out with a simple image or a photo. So that side was like, "Ugh, do I really have to like do all this video stuff? I really don't want to." And then on the other side of the coin, kind of what you were saying about with reels is you were seeing a lot of people using the same audio, and then not just the audio, but they weren't even making it any different. So you were having, one audio and people enacting, the same moves or the same kind of situation with it. They weren't even trying to be creative with it. So you had those two things going, which I think really made people get a little bit tired of it. But I will say, I think short form video is here to stay. And if you are serious about using social media on any platform, not just Instagram, on any platform, you need to get on the short form video train. And I know a lot of people like, shrink back in horror when I say that, but yeah, that's everywhere. It's everywhere. So you have TikTok, of course, is the big one that's doing it. You have YouTube Shorts. You have even Pinterest has their idea pins. Elon Musk is talking about bringing Vine back to Twitter. So it's here to stay. So I would try to start incorporating it.
Well, and I don't think short form video, I don't think it's that, I mean, it's difficult, right? But it's not impossible.
No.
And when people, when everybody says, "Oh, we don't have time for this," and whatever. But so for example, I will do some short form video content from this episode, right? And
Mhm.
basically the way I do that is I'll find one of your good quotes and I'll literally just put that in the middle of a, vertical frame and basically publish that.
Yeah.
That didn't take me any time. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit of time because I'm looking for a quote or I'm like, oh, maybe I don't know if that's the best quote or if that makes sense because you have to kind of cut it down, right? You can't
Right.
run the whole 4 minutes. But why are people struggling? Why are brands struggling with short form video?
I think they think it's harder than it is. So I will say some of the videos that do the best for me are the ones where like I see something and it just, something clicks in my head. I'm like, oh, that would be really fun to do. And I do it in 5 minutes. I mean, it takes me literally a shorter amount of time than it would to create something nice on Canva. So I think people are overthinking it and thinking like, oh, I need to have the right, the big ring light and I need to have, some kind of professional camera. But literally, if you have your iPhone and can stand in front of your window, you're good. Like, it doesn't have to be this big production, So, and people are trending more towards being real. And so it doesn't have to be this highly produced thing. There are definitely creators out there that they have all the crazy equipment and they have, you know, the special apps that are writing the content over it and things like that. And that's all well and good, but you don't need it. I mean, you can find Instagram has all the tools that you need within it to, write over it. They can do captions for you. They can do all sorts of fun things, filters. So if you just have your phone, you have Instagram and some nice light from, outside streaming in, you can create a video.
You can. That's kind of what we do. And I've gone back and forth on this, Corey, like 3, 4 years ago, maybe 4 to 5 years ago when I was traveling more, right? I was really big on, oh, mobile everything, right? If I can't do it on my phone, I'm not doing it. And we still do that, right? We actually do our Instagram reels right here in this studio, but record it with a phone, even though we can do vertical video now here in Restream. But I still want it to look good. But if I didn't have all these ring lights shining on me, I would still do it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why I wouldn't. How important is it to like figure out what your story is or whatever? So what I mean by that is everything my daughter and I do circles around podcasting or content strategy, right? Like we don't really care what they're talking about. If there's a tie-in that we can make work. So that's like our niche, I guess. Is that
Yeah.
important, or is that just an easy way to come up with content?
I mean, it's both. I think it is important because when people come to your page, if you're doing it for business, I mean, if you're just doing it for fun, then that's a whole different story. But if you're doing it for your business, people want to know what they're there for and what they're going to get from you. So, if people come to my page, they know they're going to get some good Instagram tips. They're going to get some business tips. They're going to get a little bit of humor. But yeah, it's all going to relate back to Instagram, small business, social media marketing. And of course, yours is going to be all about podcasts. So I do think it's important. I tell people to develop content pillars. So, you may have kind of an overarching theme, but you're going to have different buckets within that. So you might have, for you, your overarching theme might be podcasts, but then part of your stories or part of your reels are going to be about specific equipment. And part of it's going to be about the humor of, working with guests and some of the things that they do that's fun. And then part of your content pillars might be about, how you find guests or, things like that all relate. But once you build those, it makes deciding what your content is going to be a lot easier because like, okay, does it qualify in one of these buckets? And if no, then you might want to rethink it. Now, that being said, I have some outliers for sure that I just get, a fun streak and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this because it's fun. But if you try and stick to those, it's going to make your content more clear to people about like what you're trying to do and what you're promoting.
And I think there's always something to learn too. I mean, when you just said guests, sometimes we make a reel that's kind of like almost making fun of some things that some guests do. And, if you look at the numbers, I mean, most of the guests on the show are really, really good. I mean, very rarely is there a guest on there that has really bad technical issues that they could have addressed beforehand, right? Or like that could have been avoided if they would have paid attention or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about reels. What else is new and where are things going, especially, as Twitter is going to look to revamp and who knows? I mean, every platform out there is always looking to do the next big thing, it seems.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So with Instagram, they did just announce that you can schedule your content through Instagram itself. So you don't even have to use the Creator Studio anymore. I haven't used that yet myself, partially because as a social media manager over multiple accounts, I still like using a bigger platform like Later or Agorapulse, Hootsuite, one of those, because it's just easier for me to be on one dashboard. But that's something kind of a bigger trend. So I don't know if you've been on Be Real at all yet. I haven't. My daughter has it. So for people that it's new to them, basically it's an app where at a certain time of day, you take a photo and it's going to take your selfie photo and the reverse side of whatever you're kind of looking at. And it's just completely in the moment. And I think that's starting to take off. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that coming.
That's very interesting. So kind of like that immersive experience to an extent. I actually tried, I don't know if you have one of these, but I tried an Oculus the other day and I was utterly disappointed, quite frankly.
Oh, really?
And I get it. I really was. And I actually sent it back. And the thing is, it always depends on what your goal is, right? Why are you trying to use anything? And I really wanted to use it to watch sports, but it's really not immersive, right? It's like they
Mm.
just put a big screen in front of you inside the thing, and then it looks like you're sitting in a nice room, which may or may
Yeah.
not be nicer than the actual room you're in.
Yeah.
So I thought it wasn't necessarily worth it, but I think the whole immersive thing sounds interesting to me if that moves forward. What are some things people should focus on right now when it comes to Instagram? I mean, how do we tie it all together? I mean, I'm still a big fan of trending sounds, sharing
Mhm.
photos when you can, Instagram stories. I'm a big fan of them. However, so you shared something for this show on Instagram stories, and I try to share it, and on my iPad, I can't share anything in Instagram stories. So
Mm.
that might be a current bug or something. But
Yeah.
where should we focus? What's the most important thing to move forward here?
Yeah, well, I've been talking about this a lot lately, and what I really liked for people to do is look at the different types of content that's on Instagram as a funnel. So if you look at the top of the funnel, like, you've got reels are at the top, and that's because reels get, shot out to a lot of different people, and they may not always be your target audience, but it's a great way to get new eyeballs in. So then as you move down the funnel a little bit further, you're going to go to your main feed. So that's where you're going to tell people, a little bit more about your business. They can get to know what you have to offer, what you're all about. And then over in stories, I usually hit people with a little bit more of my personal life so they can see, like, okay, on the feed, she's more, business focused. And then I like them to see me like, oh, I'm actually a real person. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I love cats, stuff like that. So I will put that kind of thing. And I also share some just like more silly stuff, like memes or something that just struck me funny. And then people get to know, like, kind of my real side, my more quirky side, over in stories. And then if you want to go live, that can also help you kind of seal the deal. Like if you have some kind of program or course or a product, you can go live and really talk more in detail about what that thing is and why people should buy it. And then the nice thing is that, if you're live and you've got people, they can actually ask you questions as you're going along. So that is how I like to tie it all together.
And when you talk about going live, that is actually one thing I really struggle with because I want to integrate Instagram Live into all of this live streaming. And now you can actually do the vertical, right? So
Yeah.
you and I would be on top of each other in Restream. So that is an option now, but you can't actually um, stream to
Yeah.
Instagram, as far as I know right now. So that would be a
No, not
nice
yet.
addition.
It would be.
Do you
Yeah.
think that's going to happen at some point, or will they just dig into
I
the
think
deal?
it probably will. Yeah, I think it will because everybody else is allowing it. I don't know why they wouldn't want you to. Instagram's always been a little protective about doing some of the things that the other apps do. They're very protective of their API. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they just want to have, their audience there and not kind of broadcast multiple places. I'm not sure, but I think eventually they will break down and incorporate it in, platforms like Restream and all of those. So
And it's going to be interesting to see how that actually looks, right? Because even though we can actually create this feed vertically, now do I
mhm.
want to send a vertical feed to Instagram? I mean, to LinkedIn and Twitter? Maybe nobody
Yeah.
cares, but I can't use a vertical stream on the TV station, right? So it's kind of now you have to make all these decisions if that actually were to happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. And it is kind of a pain when you have the two different formats. It's like, okay, where do I want to go? And yeah, so that does make things a little bit more difficult.
So I certainly appreciate how you talk about tying everything together, and mostly your answer focused on Instagram because that's what we're talking about. But how do you feel about repurposing
Hmm.
things you do on Instagram other places? So I'll give you an example. I would not recommend to use any trending sounds on Twitter. I every time you put anything on there, you get, not every time, but a lot of times you might get a copyright notice, and their copyright notices are very different, right? They want you to take it down, and it's very official and whatever. On YouTube Shorts, which are basically an Instagram Reel, I use Instagram Reels all the time, and they perform really well. And even if the artist of the song has a copyright claim, all they say is, this is a copyright claim. We are taking the money from the ads, which whatever, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which is very different. So how do you, and then of course, I use them any other place that I can think of when it makes sense. I use them as inspiration too. When we did a reel, maybe I should do an article on that topic. How else have you seen that work?
Yeah, well, so I do a combination. A lot of my reels I'll also put on TikTok. One thing that I always tell people to be aware of is like, a lot of people will do a TikTok, they'll download it and they'll put it on Instagram, which you can do, but Instagram has been very clear about the fact that they will probably downgrade it in the algorithm because they do not want to see TikTok logos there. So that's one thing to be very careful of. So one thing that I will do is, when I'm putting together something more for my clients, for my stuff, I'm much more heavily focused on Instagram than TikTok. But for my clients it's kind of both. I have a few restaurant clients that are on both. I will create the video outside in CapCut and then just upload it as a finished piece in both of those. And, you could do that for YouTube Shorts. You could do it on Pinterest. So that's a really good way to repurpose that. You were talking about kind of other things that you could do with it. Like if I do a blog post, I will chop that up into other pieces of content. And I'll just send it out on multiple things. Like I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I will put some of that on LinkedIn. I even put my reels, if they're not super silly, I'll put my reels on Instagram. And even if they are a little bit more funny, I will do it like it's a fun Friday. And so I'll say fun Friday, and I'll do one that maybe had, an Elmo voiceover or something. But yeah, definitely if you're creating that content, use it as many places as you can keep track of. So that's the one thing that I don't love is when people say like, oh yeah, I just, I use Hootsuite or whatever, and I put it everywhere. But then the only place they're really interacting with people is, say Facebook. So then people are commenting and it's, no one's saying anything back. So just make sure when you're repurposing, it's nice to be a lot of places, but make sure you have the time to, respond to people, comment back to people, all of that, or else it just kind of looks like you're posting and ghosting, and it doesn't help you as much as you think.
Right. And then basically what you said earlier or meant is you put those Instagram Reels on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. What did I say? On Instagram?
You said Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I think everybody.
Yes. I put them on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody, I'm sure, got that in the context. Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, I use them in a lot of places, but I don't use them at the same time, right? So I got a little bit of a rhythm going. LinkedIn goes out a certain amount of time. Instagram goes out a certain amount of time, and other places do that. How often do you and the team update this book? I mean, I joked earlier, it seems to me it's a constant battle of updating, but I know you have probably an official cadence or interval, right, that you're after.
Yeah, so I think we do it every about like 2.5 years. So yeah, I mean it is a challenge writing a printed book about an ever-changing app. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, they make changes all the time, and some of them are more important than others. The biggest thing to keep up with a lot of times is just the screenshots, because they make lots of just small, UI changes. And we take all of our own screenshots. So everything in there is something that we've taken ourselves, and then it goes through an editor and they check it. And then it goes through a tech editor and they check it. So yeah, everything's fully tested, but yeah, we do it every few years. and we kind of straddle. So we have Instagram for Dummies and Instagram for Business for Dummies. So they're kind of on like opposite years. So it's kind of like if one didn't catch a big thing, then the next one will. Luckily, we caught on the last version of Instagram for Business for Dummies, we were putting the book to bed, and Reels came out, and we said, "Oh, we got to put this in there." So we quickly wrote one last chapter in there on Reels because we knew like this is going to be big. So it is a timing thing. This year over the summer, they were making tons and tons of changes. So I just tried to wait to write that chapter. Like after they did a big change, I thought, okay, they're probably done now. So I will write that and then move on to the next thing that just changed. So I purposely waited till the very end. I wrote the chapters on Reels, and I was like, okay, I'm waiting for these for the very end because I know they're going to keep, making more changes. So
yeah, very, very interesting. Corey, it's always great to have you on the show, giving us the latest updates on what's going on with Instagram and what we should do. Thank you so much for making the time.
Of course. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review our show on your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to share this episode with your networks. We appreciate you. Until next time.